Okay, so let's get right into it. You guys sent a bunch of articles about Kanye and Bianca Censori at the Grammys.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where to start. The internet's still kind of losing its mind.
Yeah, it's wild. It's been a wild ride for sure. I mean,
Right.
just going through these articles, Sensori's outfit is really a ground zero for all of this.
Yeah, the articles did not hold back, extremely revealing, sheer see-through. Some were even saying that she wasn't wearing any underwear.
Right. It was definitely giving nude, which is a bold choice. For the Grammys, I mean, even today, it's a bold choice.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder why now? Why this? What's the message? Is this like a PR stunt or is it really just her personal style?
I mean, one of the articles mentioned that she's been known to be a little provocative with her fashion choices.
That's right.
But this was a whole other level.
This was disruptive. You know, it's one thing to be daring, but she was forcing a reaction out of everybody. And that brings us to like the media and the celebrity response, which is a whole nother
Oh, yeah.
berm.
This blew up. It was everywhere.
Globally.
Global.
Every news outlet, all the A-listers, everybody had something to say.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because some of the outlets were saying that they were escorted out,
Right.
and others are saying that they locked on their own.
Yeah, there's inconsistencies in the reporting.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what really happened.
Makes you wonder, did they get kicked out? Did they leave? Was it planned? Like, what
That was the plan all along?
Okay, it's like more questions than answers.
Right. And then you have, like, the reactions from some of the celebrities. You know, Alyssa Farrah Griffin, she called it a breaking point and said she doesn't want to see Kanye on another red carpet.
Wow. Yeah, and Meghan McCain, she went even further, right?
Oh, McCain.
She said that he's
Yeah.
disgusting, vile.
She did not hold back.
No. And she even went so far as to say that Censori is potentially a victim and a hostage.
That's right. Which brings us to this question of, like, is this really Bianca Censori's self-expression?
Right.
Or is there something darker going on here?
Yeah, there's one article, they brought in like a body language expert, Nicola Hickling,
Interesting.
and they were analyzing their behavior on the red carpet.
Oh, wow.
And she's saying that he was basically directing her actions.
That is fascinating because it makes you think about, like, her agency, especially in this relationship that's constantly being watched.
Yeah.
Does she have a voice? Is she really in control of how she's being perceived?
Like, is this really her style? Or is she being influenced or even, like, orchestrated by someone else?
Right. And if so, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, beyond just the reputation damage, this whole thing had some pretty big financial consequences for Kanye.
Yeah, one article said that he got dropped from a major performance at the Tokyo Dome in Japan.
Big time. Millions of dollars.
Huge.
Like $20 million, poof, gone.
It sounds like investors got a little scooped.
Yeah, they got cold feet. With all the scandal and the potential for backlash, it just wasn't worth it for them, especially in Japan, too.
Yeah, they're talking about how they have a growing Me Too movement.
Right.
And sensitivity to controlling behavior towards women.
Yeah, it came across as very controlling, and that's just not something investors wanted to be associated with.
It really shows that your personal actions can have major professional consequences, especially if you're someone like Kanye.
Right, he's already got this reputation, and this just adds fuel to the fire.
So who came out on top? Who came out like the loser in this? It's hard to tell.
It's complicated. On the surface, Bianca Censori got a lot of attention. You know, maybe the kind of attention you want in the fashion world, but is it the right kind of attention?
Yeah, that's a good point, because that type of notoriety can really backfire.
It can.
It raises questions about her long-term goals and whether or not this is going to help or hurt her career.
Exactly.
And then with Kanye, there's no question that he's suffered both professionally and financially, and his image has taken another hit.
For sure, piled onto everything else he's got going on.
It's interesting, though, because this whole thing sparked all these other discussions.
It did.
The articles are talking about, like, artistic expression and public decency and the power dynamics between men and women.
It became this lightning rod for all these conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't just a shocking outfit. It really was about our values and where we draw the line as a society.
Now, there's one more thing that I thought was interesting. One article mentioned that he was actually nominated for a Grammy that night.
That's right. Best rap song.
For his track, Carnival.
For Carnival, yeah. Kind of fitting, given the, the atmosphere he created.
Yeah. But the award ended up going to Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick cleaned up that night. Swept a few categories.
Yeah, it's almost poetic, isn't it?
It is.
In all this chaos, the show goes on and other artists are being celebrated.
Yeah.
And he's just embroiled in this whole scandal.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of the show going on, some of the articles are a little unclear about whether they were actually asked to leave or if they left voluntarily. Some say escorted out, some say they left on their own. One even suggested that they may not have even had a proper invitation in the first place.
Which is
a whole other layer to this whole thing.
It really is. Like, was this whole thing a planned stunt?
Or did it just completely spiral?
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
We may never know the full truth.
We may never know.
But we can look at what we do know and consider the different perspectives and try to understand the bigger picture here.
And maybe, most importantly, learn from it.
Absolutely.
Because like it or not, this whole spectacle reflects on us, on our culture and the world we live in.
It does. Yeah. And you know what else struck me when I was reading through these articles? The way the media was talking about Bianca Censori. Some of it was just so focused on her body and her outfit.
Right.
It felt almost predatory. Like they were trying to capitalize on the shock value without any regard for her as a person.
It's true. They were reducing her to an object.
Yeah.
Just a body.
Yeah. It's easy to forget that there's a human being behind all of this. And even when they were trying to analyze her motives, there was this underlying assumption that she was somehow being manipulated or used.
Like she didn't have a mind of her own.
Right. Exactly. And it made me wonder, did anyone even bother to ask her what she was thinking, what she was trying to express?
That's a great point. It just shows how quick we are to jump to conclusions, especially in a situation like this where power dynamics are involved.
Exactly. It's a good reminder to be cautious about the narratives we create and the assumptions we make.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of narratives, it's interesting how this whole incident has impacted the music industry as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. It sparked a lot of debate about the role of artists in society.
Right, yeah.
On whether or not they have a responsibility to be role models.
It's a tough one, right? Because on the one hand, artists should be free to express themselves.
Of course.
But they also have a platform and influence that comes with that.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. And this incident really blurred the lines between personal expression and public performance.
Yeah, for sure. And we can't forget about the consequences for Kanye.
Oh, yeah. The financial fallout is huge.
The Tokyo Dome contract was a major blow.
Major. And there could be more to come, too.
What do you mean?
Well, one article mentioned that this could damage his brand in the long run.
I see.
Make it harder for him to secure partnerships and endorsements.
Oh, that makes sense. And then there's the potential for legal issues, too, right?
Especially if those accusations of controlling behavior turn out to be true.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences.
Yeah. And those consequences can be far-reaching.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about the power dynamics in their relationship. And it's interesting because we've heard from experts and commentators and celebrities, but we haven't heard from Bianca herself.
That's so true. We can speculate all we want, but without her voice, we're just filling in the blanks.
Exactly. Like, does she feel empowered by her choices? Does she feel like she has a voice in this relationship? These are questions we just can't answer.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that behind every headline, there's a human story.
For sure. Oh, one article mentioned that Kanye has actually been living in Tokyo for the past year.
Oh, wow.
Which makes the loss of that Tokyo Dome contract even more significant.
Like, this whole incident disrupted both his career and his personal life.
It really is like a crossroads for him. Where does he go from here? What does this mean for his relationship?
So many unknowns. But one thing's for sure, he can't keep ignoring the societal implications of his actions.
It wasn't just a personal drama. It really did become a cultural phenomenon.
It did. And it reflected a lot of the anxieties and trends that are already out there.
Like what?
Well, one article talked about how this whole thing sparked debates about the limits of artistic expression in the age of social media.
It's like we're struggling to define those limits, right? Because the lines are so blurred now.
They are. And with everyone having a platform, it's even harder to navigate these issues.
So this incident kind of forced us to confront those questions head on.
It did, whether we were ready or not. And it highlighted the need for these conversations.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of which, we can't forget that this all went down at the Grammys.
Oh, the Grammys. A prestigious institution with a long history.
Yeah, it definitely cast a shadow over the event.
It did. It makes you wonder if they're going to be more cautious in the future.
Right. Like stricter dress codes or more careful vetting of guests.
It's possible. They might want to avoid this kind of situation again.
Yeah. It just goes to show that even institutions like the Grammys aren't immune to this kind of controversy.
It's true. You know, one thing I found fascinating is how all the different voices in these articles have interpreted this whole thing.
Yeah, we've heard from journalists, celebrities, body language experts, fashion critics.
Everyone's got their own take. It's a reminder that there's no single objective truth when it comes to something this complex.
Yeah, and that it's important to consider all the different perspectives before we form our own judgments.
Exactly. Now, zooming out a bit, it's clear that this incident tapped into some major cultural fault lines that were already there.
Like we were saying earlier, it became a Rorschach test for people's beliefs about artistic expression, public decency, gender dynamics, all of it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how this one event could be interpreted in so many different ways.
Depending on your own perspective.
Exactly. And social media definitely played a role in amplifying those different interpretations.
Oh, for sure. It created this whirlwind of opinions and reactions.
It's a lot to process. And it brings us back to the question of Bianca Censori.
Right.
What was her role in all of this? Was she a mastermind, a victim, something in between?
We have all these experts weighing in, analyzing her body language, speculating about her motives.
But we never actually hear from her.
It's true. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important perspectives are the ones that are missing.
Now, let's talk about Kanye for a moment. He's no stranger to controversy, but this seems to have hit him hard.
Yeah, both professionally and personally.
The Tokyo Dome contract was a huge financial loss, and his reputation has taken another hit.
It'll be interesting to see how he navigates this moving forward. Do you think he'll lay low for a while? Or will he double down on the provocations?
He's unpredictable, that's for sure. But this will definitely have a lasting impact on his career.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that your actions have consequences, especially when you're in the public eye.
Yeah, one thing that struck me was Japan's reaction to this whole incident. They seemed to take a particularly strong stance.
Oh, yeah, the articles mentioned that Japan has been grappling with its own Me Too movement.
Right.
And they're very sensitive to these issues of controlling behavior towards women.
So Kanye's actions were met with a lot of condemnation.
It shows that cultural context is so important.
It is. What might be considered edgy in one culture could be deeply offensive in another.
And it seems like Kanye learned that the hard way.
Yeah, it seems like it. So what are your thoughts on the broader implications of this whole scandal? Do you think it will have a lasting impact on the music industry as a whole?
That's a really good question. It's hard to say for sure, but I think it's possible that we'll see a more cautious approach from both artists and event organizers.
Interesting. What do you mean?
Well, maybe we'll see stricter dress codes, more careful vetting of guests, more emphasis on appropriate behavior.
I see.
But then again, maybe this will spark a wave of even more outrageous stunts.
Oh, interesting.
Like a anything goes mentality where shock value is the ultimate goal.
It's like we're at a tipping point. Will it lead to more restraint or more chaos?
Yeah.
Time will tell. You know, something we talked about earlier that I think is really important is the role of social media in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
It's fascinating how it can act as both a megaphone and a filter.
Amplifying certain voices while silencing others.
Exactly. And it can create these echo chambers where people only see information that confirms their existing beliefs.
And distorts reality, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It turns these complex events into sound bites and memes.
Yeah, social media is such a powerful tool.
It is. But it needs to be used responsibly. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to acknowledge the human element of this story.
Yes.
It's easy to get caught up in all the analysis and commentary.
Right.
But we have to remember that there are real people at the heart of this.
Kanye and Bianca, for all their flaws, are individuals with their own thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. And their actions have real consequences.
It's a reminder that empathy is important.
It is. Even when we're dealing with people who seem larger than life.
Yeah. One article brought up this idea of redemption.
Oh, interesting.
Can Kanye redeem himself in the eyes of the public?
And if so, what would that look like?
Well, the article suggested that he needs to take responsibility for his actions,
Okay.
apologize for any harm he's caused, and demonstrate a genuine commitment to change.
But is that enough? Can words really erase the past?
And what about Bianca? Does she need to distance herself from Kanye to salvage her own reputation?
These are tough questions, but they're questions we need to grapple with as we try to make sense of this whole story.
Because this wasn't just an isolated event.
It wasn't. It was a symptom of something bigger that's happening in our culture.
Right. One article argued that we're living in this age of increasing polarization.
Where people are retreating into their own bubbles.
And outrage and spectacle have become commodities.
Driving clicks and likes and shares.
Yeah, it's a troubling trend. And another aspect of this story that I think deserves attention is the role of the media.
Oh, absolutely. Their coverage of this was both fascinating and problematic.
Yeah, some outlets were just sensationalizing it.
Focusing on the shock value.
and perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
While others try to be more nuanced and balanced,
Yeah.
acknowledging the complexities and the gray
It
areas.
just shows that we need to be more critical of the media.
We do. Always question the narratives that are being presented to us.
And remember that there are multiple sides to every story.
Exactly. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on one final point. Personal accountability.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ultimately, each individual is responsible for their own actions.
We can analyze societal forces all we want.
But we can't absolve individuals of their own agency.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable society.
And that personal responsibility is the foundation of real change.
Okay, with that in mind, let's talk about the long-term consequences of this whole event
Okay.
and what lessons we can learn from it. Okay, so we've really gone deep on this whole Grammy thing. But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the future. Like, what are the lasting consequences of all of this?
Well, for Bianca Censori, this could be a defining moment. It could solidify her as this, fashion rebel, someone who's not afraid to push boundaries and really shake things up.
Which, I mean, that could open a lot of doors for her. But it's a risky path.
Oh, for sure. It could totally backfire, too. What if she becomes known only for this,
Right.
With all the baggage that comes with it, it could overshadow any real talent or vision that she might have.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk.
It is. And it makes you think about, how long can shock value really last? It gets attention, but can it sustain a career?
That's the question, right?
Right. And then there's Kanye. I mean, he's had his fair share of controversy.
Oh, yeah, he has.
But this time feels different.
It does. The financial hit is big, and the cultural landscape is changing. Like, there's less tolerance for this kind of behavior.
For sure. People are less forgiving.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder about the Grammys, too. Are they going to become more conservative now?
Yeah.
Or image conscious?
It's possible. Maybe we'll see a shift towards more family-friendly entertainment.
Yeah, less of that edge that they used to be known for.
Which, I mean, in a way, that would be kind of sad, right? Part of what makes awards shows fun is that element of surprise.
The unpredictability.
Exactly. We watch for those moments that we'll remember, the things we talk about later.
Yeah.
But maybe we're moving towards a time of more predictability and safety.
Yeah, maybe. But you know what I think is really interesting about all of this is that it forced us to confront these bigger issues.
It did.
We had to talk about artistic expression, the influence of social media, the power dynamics in relationships.
These are important conversations.
Yeah, they are. And as uncomfortable as it was, this whole thing brought those conversations to the surface.
It was a wake-up call. We need to be more mindful, more critical, more willing to challenge the status quo and, check our own assumptions.
Yeah, totally. So for you, the listener, I want to leave you with a question. What resonated with you from all of this? What will you take away from this deep dive?
Because beyond the headlines, beyond all the spectacle, beyond the gossip, there are some really important questions here about how we want to live, how we want to create, and how we want to treat each other.
Yeah, those are the conversations that really matter. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a lot.
It has. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, keep diving deeper.